I wanted to expand on some of the points made yesterday. In fact, yesterday I was unable to cover a couple of points in a video that I created on the topic of why, in my opinion, Apple has been seated on the bench, has been benched, to use that slang phrase, in the world of growth stocks, at least for right now. And those points have to do with a recent brouhaha between Apple and Facebook on the topic of personalization, and whether personalization should be a conscious activity or a choice, a conscious choice made by consumers, or something covert, effectively, working in the background, which has been the mechanism for the last 10 years or more under the technology built on the concept of what are referred to as cookies, which are kind of like a brand that specifies a unique individual, and so the journey of that individual across websites and apps can actually be tracked, and the data accumulated as to this site visit history and activity history in order to create a personalization story that's unique to that individual, which can then be marketed to advertisers, which is, of course, a big piece of Google and Facebook's business, advertising business. So in the case of Apple, Apple has actually put the kibosh on that, at least in print, and has stated its intention to change how apps on iOS work to effectively make the participation of individuals in that process a conscious volition that the individual has to exercise. So why is that important? It's important because it limits, this stance of Apple limits its contention that its brand is the best brand to save users, consumers, from the threat of deep surveillance. Deep surveillance, I'm not going to get into the topic of deep surveillance. I'm just going to assume that people viewing this video are familiar with the notion of deep surveillance. And what Apple has done is staked out a turf for itself as we are your savior against this deep surveillance technology. But that claim actually is limited by this brouhaha that Apple has entered into with Facebook. And it's because while Apple is ostensibly not advocating those tools, the use of those tools, it nevertheless is advocating something referred to as a walled garden, which is a world built around iOS, whether it's an iPhone, an iPad, or an iMac or a Mac. You're in a world which is discrete and actually wholly controlled by Apple. So the upshot of that is the hassle or the contest that Apple is also undergoing right now, simultaneously with this hassle with Facebook. They have another hassle with Epic Games, and the Epic Games is all about the control of the App Store. So for these reasons, Apple's growth prognosis, or the likelihood of its growing exponentially outside of the iPhone, is limited. There's too much regulatory scrutiny going on in this. There's too much public inquiry about what's going on there. And the end result is, recent press also indicated that Warren Buffett, who has an enormous, or Berkshire Hathaway, retains an enormous position in Apple to the tune of more than $120 billion worth of stock, has recently unloaded over 1% of that stock. Now that's pure skimming the cream, no doubt about it, but nevertheless, they are unloading some of that position. So I wanted to clarify that point because I didn't have the time in yesterday's video to actually do that. The final ramification is, getting back to the services story, which I did cover yesterday, is the argument that if we can be number 3 or number 2 in 10 different markets, we're going to come up the winner. I don't think that's going to hold true for Apple in terms of its less than number 1 position, not only in the fitness market versus Peloton, for example, as a competitor, nor in the Apple TV Plus market versus Walt Disney, Disney Plus, or Netflix. And finally, the last one would be in terms of offsetting, or actually the ramification is that they need to demonstrate to analysts on Wall Street and actually the big investors are listening to those guys all day long, and gals. They need to demonstrate to their people their ability to get free from complete dependence on iPhone sales. And a number 3 position in the various markets that they're participating in for services, and one in particular is Apple Music. Apple Music is actually a sad story, or an unsuccessful effort. It started off as number 1, but now services like Amazon Music far exceed Apple Music in terms of the functionality, the ability to provide a karaoke experience for the user by showing lyrics as they're being spoken in a song, for example, the quick response of Amazon Music to actually identify songs based upon not only strings from lyrics, but actually summations about lyrics, is far superior to what's going on with Apple Music. And lastly, Siri, as a personal assistant, is way behind and has remained way behind for several years the performance of Amazon Alexa or Google's Assistant. So I just wanted to wrap up on that one. My name is Ira Michael Blonder. I'm the CEO and founder of IMB Enterprises Incorporated. I'm also a personal investor, and I have some positions in some of these companies, and just taking my time I do not have a position at this time in Apple. Please take a look at our blog on https://www.imbenterprises.com/our-blog, or my personal Twitter page at Mike the Bebop. And speak with you soon.